and girls, we have a Thanksgiving story today. This is called Franklin's Thanksgiving. We've read some other stories about Franklin this year. I think we read about Franklin starting school and Franklin playing a game with his friends. So the author and illustrator are Paulette Burgot and Brenda Clark, and they wrote all of the Franklin stories. All right, so this one is Franklin's Thanksgiving. There's our title page. Franklin liked everything about Thanksgiving. He liked eating pumpkin fly pie and cranberry jelly. He liked making cornucopias and corn husk dolls. But most of all, he liked having his grandma and grandpa come for dinner. It was the family tradition, and Franklin could hardly wait. That must be a picture of grandma and grandpa. A week before Thanksgiving, a postcard arrived from Franklin's grandparents. "Oh dear," sighed Franklin's mother. "Grandma and Grandpa can't make it back for the holiday." "But they have to," cried Franklin. "They're always here for Thanksgiving." Franklin's mother gave him a hug. "There will still be the four of us," she said. "It won't be the same," Franklin grumbled. Over the next few days, Franklin was so busy that he didn't have much time to think about Grandma and Grandpa. He helped his mother pick apples and make applesauce. He helped his father dig up vegetables and store them in the cellar. Franklin and Bear helped Harriet and Beatrice pick berries and gather nuts. In the gardens and orchards, forests and fields, everyone was bringing in the harvest. Franklin counted all the jars of jams and preserves. "I think this year was the most bountiful ever," announced his father. "We could feed the whole town." "I just wish we could feed Grandma and Grandpa," sighed Franklin. His mother agreed. "We'll miss having company," she said. At school, Franklin's class made a harvest quilt and learned how the early settlers celebrated Thanksgiving. "What are you doing for Thanksgiving, Mr. Owl?" asked Franklin. "I'll have dinner with my mother," he replied. "Our relatives can't visit this year." "Ours neither," said Franklin. Then he had an idea. He invited Mr. Owl and his mother for dinner. "It's all right with my parents," Franklin explained. "They want some company." "Well, thank you, Franklin," said Mr. Owl. "We'd be delighted to come." Franklin smiled. This would be a wonderful surprise for his parents. So he's not going to tell them. At home, Franklin's mother looked at the berry pies cooling on the windowsill. She had an idea. She walked over to Bear's house and invited the whole family for Thanksgiving. "It will be a wonderful surprise for everyone," she explained. So his mom has also invited some people. In the garden, Franklin's father waved to Mr. Mole. "Are you going to your sister's for Thanksgiving?" he asked. "Not this year," replied Mr. Mole. "With my broken ankle, I can't go too far." Franklin's father had an idea. He invited Mr. Mole for dinner. "It will be a wonderful surprise for everyone," he said. So everyone in the family has invited someone, but no one is telling. After school, Franklin went home with Moose. That's when he had another idea. It was the Moose family's first Thanksgiving in Woodland. Franklin invited them for dinner. "It's all right with my parents," he explained. "They want some company." "We would be delighted," replied Mrs. Moose. Franklin smiled. His surprise was getting bigger and bigger. On Thanksgiving morning, Franklin got up early to help with dinner. He stirred soup and shucked corn. Then he set the table for 9. Franklin's father counted the place settings. He shook his head and reset the table for 5. Franklin's mother looked at the table. She was puzzled, but she added 3 more place settings. And everyone took turns peeking out the window, watching for their surprise guest. Mr. Owl and his mother were the first to arrive. "Surprise!" Franklin shouted to his parents. "This is a surprise," they exclaimed. Then Franklin saw the Bear family and Mr. Mole. Now everyone was surprised. All the guests crowded inside holding platters and bowls heaped high with food. Franklin and his parents laughed and tried to explain what had happened. "Well, we sure have plenty to eat," declared Franklin's mother. "We just don't have plenty of room." Franklin knew they had a big problem. The Moose family hadn't even arrived yet. Franklin looked around. There wasn't one bit of room inside. But outside? Suddenly Franklin knew what to do. Moose and his family arrived as all the others came out the door. Everyone carried food and dishes, tables and chairs. "What's going on?" asked Moose. "We're eating our Thanksgiving dinner in the field," answered Bear. "Just like the early settlers," said Franklin. It was a wonderful afternoon. Everyone ate lots of good food, and everyone said how thankful they were for good friends and family. Franklin was thankful for 3 helpings of pumpkin fly pie. "I'm eating Grandma and Grandpa's share," he explained. Soon the sun was setting and it was time to go home. "This was a wonderful day," said Franklin's mother. Franklin agreed. "Let's do it again next year," he said. Everyone laughed and cheered. Grandma and Grandpa phoned later that night, and Franklin told them all about the new Thanksgiving tradition. They promised that next year they wouldn't miss it for anything. Franklin smiled. He may not get 3 helpings of pumpkin fly pie next year, but he knew he would still be thankful. All right, boys and girls, so think about our story. Who were the characters? There were lots of characters. Franklin, his family, the Bear family, the Moose family, Mr. Owl. But our main character would be Franklin, because the whole story was kind of about him and how he felt about Thanksgiving. If you think about our setting, part of it was in their home, part of it was at Franklin's school or their neighbors, but most all of it was in what they call the woodland. That was where they lived, which was outside. And then if we think about our problem, what was the problem in the story? Franklin was upset his grandparents couldn't come, so then everyone started inviting extra people to Thanksgiving and they ran out of room. So how did they solve that problem? They decided to eat outside just like the early settlers did for Thanksgiving. All right, boys and girls, so that was called Franklin's Thanksgiving, because we are getting ready for Thanksgiving next week. All right, have a great day and I'll see you soon.